Hi, I'm Rob Batterham, and I'm sorry I couldn't be with you tonight, but I think you understand the reasons why. This topic of climate is very divisive. You have over half of the Australian population either alarmed or concerned, and the other half ranging all the way through to it doesn't even exist as a problem. Now, on the science side, there's good agreement on most aspects, but not all. For example, there's no problem measuring CO2 from burning fossil fuels as being different to the rest of the CO2 in the atmosphere. But we have the broad issue of causality, and it really doesn't get enough debate. We have this: temperatures are rising, CO2 is rising, and therefore CO2 is the cause because our models tell us so. Well, there are a few things that sit there that give us cause to debate that. For example, the disastrous floods in Germany at the moment, very sad, but they're no higher than what happened in 1268. And yet CO2 is now twice as high. So what's going on here? And the roughly 1,000-year cycle that we've had for the last 10,000 years since the last ice age. Hot spells, cold, hot spells, cold, 1,000-year cycle roughly. The Little Ice Age, many of you would be familiar with that. The Roman warm period with malaria in London and so forth. CO2 didn't vary through all of those cycles, but it is varying in this most recent one. So what's different? Another major issue is water vapour, which NASA points out is simply the most important greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. And with 2 to 3% of water vapour in the atmosphere, that's 20 to 30,000 parts per million. Compare that with 400 parts per million of CO2. In other words, 50 to 75 water molecules for every one molecule of CO2. When they've got similar absorption properties for radiation, why is CO2 the villain? Don't know. These things can't even be debated on the science side because it's supposedly all settled. So what do we do about this? There are lots of issues around climate, and it's hard to have the debate, so good luck tonight. My opinion, for what's that worth, as a mathematical modeler from way back and an engineer, is I have some sense of the power and the shortcomings of models. And as such, I'm comfortable to say, wow, emissions could be quite a serious problem. So let's reduce them when we can, especially when there are co-benefits of so doing. A good example of this is soil carbon, and John Anderson is a champion in this particular area. Go for more soil carbon. It takes carbon out of the atmosphere, it stores it to long term. It gives better productivity, less fertilizer, less runoff, better drought resilience, and so on. For heaven's sake, get on with it. Then there are plenty of other examples where there are long-term benefits, better insulation of houses. Instead of burning electricity to do our air conditioning, why don't we have heat pumps which go down into the ground instead of just to the atmosphere? Examples abound of where we can make changes to our emissions profile without drastic economic penalties. Princeton University has recently completed a study of how you can get to zero in North America. A very, very detailed study, the first that's considered the totality of the system. And it says, yes, you can do it, and it'll cost you a order 0.5% of GDP per year. And we're just starting a study in Australia, which will hopefully take some of the heat out of the debate. Unfortunately, the results won't be available for 2 years. So this is an area where we need cool, calm, rational debate, not extremes. It is important, and I wish you well for tonight's activities.